Hello, and welcome to this episode where I'm going to be talking about how to reignite your pleasure when you feel completely shut down. Or maybe just you feel that you're completely sexually constipated or completely sexually blocked. It's been ages, either since you've had great sex, you've felt sexual. Maybe you're in this dynamic where you're kind of having duty sex to try and keep the relationship or marriage afloat, but you're not feeling it. It's for you if you've lost your libido, if your libido has completely flatlined, or maybe you never had much of a libido to begin with. Maybe a big life thing has happened, such as divorce, infidelity, going through the menopause, maybe something life threatening like cancer, or something that has really forced you to have a big reckoning with yourself and with your body. Childbirth, becoming a mother. It sounds like I'm covering all the big topics because these are often things that clients come to me with. Usually they'll come to work with me either after a big life event or when they're in between, or whether that big life event has happened and now they're in the recovery phase. Maybe if you come from a religious background, this is also for you. We're going to be exploring a bit about why this happens, when it happens, and then what you can start doing, how you can start to move out of feeling numb, feeling shut down, and into pleasure. And spoiler alert, it's not about having a big, fantastical sexual awakening where you are having multiple orgasms left, right, and center. Usually it's very slow, it's very gentle. I wrote a post. Oh God, I'm feeling sniffy. God, I don't know if it's hay fever or a cold, but it seems to be every time I've done a video or a audio recently, my nose just decides to. Let me take a sip of tea just to clear my throat. Where was I? God, I've lost my train of thought now. This is what I was going to say. I did a post earlier today about how, yes, the way that I work and how I want is to help you to get your libido back if you've got low libido and you want to start enjoying sex again. But actually, that's the tip of the iceberg of what we do. Because so many women and people with vulvas either come to work with me or come to do this work thinking that either me or some other coach is going to wave a magic wand. And when they leave, they're going to be having multiple orgasms. They're going to be just completely sexually alive. And they've got this idea that this is where I am now, really shut down, really feeling frumpy, feeling like this. And where I want to be is way over there. And it's this completely voracious, sexually alive person. And part of the work is realizing, well, first of all, she's there right now. It's already inside you. And actually, a lot of it is untangling your conditioning. A lot of it is learning how to slow down. There's more untangling conditioning. And what if it was instead about learning how to tune into what actually feels good, what your body's actually telling you, as opposed to continually pushing through, masking, overriding yourself, getting things done. Okay, I've just got too many things to do right now. I'll be more sensual when things are less crazy in my life, when my to-do list is empty, which never happens. So I hope you get what you want and what you need from this episode. And if this sounds like something you really want to explore, Body Bliss is a wonderful 9-week group program for women and vulva havers starting April 22nd. And we're going to be going through a whole journey of you reigniting your sexuality and your eroticism for you. No more pretending, no more faking it, no more appeasing and putting your partner's needs before your own. This is all about you. So let me check my notes. She says, checking her tab and sniffing because I don't know if it's hay fever or a cold. I don't know. I usually have notes for a podcast or a video because I will go wildly off topic otherwise. So first of all, going back to when this happens, and I've mentioned a lot of this already, and it could also be, I've worked with women where it's like they've either never felt very sexual or something big happened in their life quite early on and they knew that it shut them down. And they knew that there is so much pleasure they could be having, but for some reason their body is keeping them numb. I also want to say that whenever I work with clients like this, and often they would have tried different forms of therapy, coaching, going to a tantra workshop, going to a tantric body worker, and they might have had some success and it might have been helpful. But then either what happened is their body kind of got wise to it and kept shutting them down again, or it just didn't last. Taking a sip of water again. Oh God. I'm going to keep going through this, even though I keep either needing to want to sneeze or blow my nose. So why is this happening? Now, there's loads of different reasons possibly why. And before I get into a lot of reasons, I do want to say that if you suspect you might be on the asexuality spectrum, you might not find the rest of this podcast is helpful to you, because I never want to deny somebody's sexual orientation. And if you kind of want the rule of thumb as to whether you're asexual or on the asexuality spectrum or not, think about, do you want this? Do you want to enjoy sex? Do you want to enjoy pleasure? Is this something that you really want? Or is it something that you feel you should? Is it something that your partner's pressuring you to do, where the future of your relationship or marriage depends on you being really sexually open and awake? And maybe it's a mix between the two. But I really want you to get clear on, is this something I want? Is it something that is coming from me? Or is this pressure from outside? Now, you also might find this helpful if you're asexual, because part of this is talking about what feels pleasurable to you. Because even if you're asexual, I guarantee you are capable of feeling so much pleasure. And it could be that the way that you experience pleasure and desire and turn on is really different to how we are taught sex should be and how it should feel like. At the same time, again, really get clear on, is this something I want? Or is it something I'm feeling pressured to want? Or I'm actually being pressured to want? Because if it's coming from outside of you, if it's coming from your partner, if it's coming from a feeling of should, and that if you don't do this, you have therefore failed, but deep down, there's not really an interest for you, that's something that you're going to have to be really honest with yourself about. Because there's no amount of coaching or therapy that is going to fix something that is already innate inside you. So, why else can this happen? So, I also want to talk about that when this happens, when you're feeling shut down, when you're feeling numb, that often what this is, it's a form of the functional freeze response. You may have heard me talk about the fight, flight, freeze response, which is what our bodies and nervous systems do when we feel under threat. And the freeze response is at the end, which is what our bodies and nervous systems do when they have detected so much threat and so much stress that what they do is kind of shut down to keep you alive. And this is a very, very, as I'm saying this is like a really, really, really basic layman's term. But if you've ever heard the expression play dead, in terms of, I don't know if you've ever seen like a video of like, I don't know, a tiger chasing a rabbit, or basically like a predator chasing a small animal. And it's chasing, and suddenly the small animal just kind of flips on its back and plays dead. Except there's a slight play on words, because the animal is not actually doing it on purpose. The animal isn't deciding halfway through, okay, what if I just play dead and the predator will lose interest? No, this is the animal's nervous system taking over, so that either the predator will lose interest, or worse comes to worse, if the predator decides to eat the animal, it won't feel a thing. But the point is, it was not a conscious decision from the animal. It was something that the nervous system did. In the same way that when you're experiencing a lot of freeze response, a lot of numbness, it's never a conscious choice. It is your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to try and keep you alive. And it's working because you're alive today. One of the things I'm always talking about in client sessions is, first of all, you're not broken. And secondly, what if your body is working in exactly the way it's supposed to be working? Your nervous system is doing exactly what it's designed to be doing, which is trying to keep you safe and trying to keep you alive, because it's detecting a threat of some kind. And that threat could be external, internal, whatever. So what if instead you could maybe even thank this numbness? Thank this feeling of shutdown for trying to keep you safe and alive, especially if there's been things like assault or traumatic experiences in the past, or maybe not. So when we're talking about why this happens, it's not about going really far into your childhood and digging up every single thing. But you can probably think of a lot of themes. Maybe you did have a difficult childhood. Maybe you had parents that weren't doing the job they were supposed to do. Maybe you come from a religious background or a conservative background where, I mean, again, I come from purity culture, where if you're being constantly told over and over again, women have to cover up, don't be a whore, sex is a sin, bad, bad, bad. Well, all of these messages become internalized, and of course our body still remembers that. But also, what if this feeling of numbness is burnout? What if it's tiredness? What if it's stress? What if it's the fact that you don't have enough help around the house? What if it's that you are running patterns and running after everybody else and feeling over responsible for everybody else? What if it's that you don't actually know how to relax and you can't relax because your brain is constantly going? What maybe you are neurodivergent and you're constantly overstimulated and constantly masking, and so you're feeling this level of numbness because your body's basically just trying to keep you safe and alive because you're feeling all the stimulus. That's not even taking into account, supposing there's some things like taking care of sick relatives, taking care of your kids if you're a parent. There's so many things I could list off here. But the point is, I want you to really think about this feeling of shutdown, this feeling of numbness. It is a form of self-protection. It is a way that your body is trying to keep you safe from various different things. And again, you can probably list off a whole load of things. I haven't worked with one person with this where they might have had medical trauma in the past. They might have had a really difficult marriage. Maybe they've gone through a really rough patch. Maybe there's been infidelity. Maybe there's been something life-threatening, like cancer or like something else. Maybe the menopause has really fucked them over and given them a really difficult time. Or maybe the menopause has been that catalyst where, because of the complete drop of hormones, all of that masking, all of that trying, all of the cycles of people pleasing, of perfectionism, of being the good mother, being the good wife, being the good woman, you can't do that anymore. And now you're thinking, what do I do now? I can't do those old coping mechanisms before. Just checking my notes because I wanted to make sure I got everything else. I will also want to talk into that some of this numbness can be from not knowing your body or not feeling good in your body. Again, I have not worked with one woman or somebody socialized as female that has not had shit with their body image issues, feeling insecure about their body, feeling that their body... It's like, I remember I still talk about this. I went to this book launch years ago for a book called No Need to Diet. And it almost felt like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, but for people who've done diets. I remember all of us were sitting there talking about all the diets we'd tried, all the different ways of eating. And it just really opened my eyes to, I don't know how many women there are in the world who are constantly happy with the way their body looks all the time and they've never had a feeling of insecurity about their body. I don't think there is. And remember that, I mean, I live in Austria, but I come from the UK. The UK, the USA, a lot of these westernized countries and others as well have a really messed up relationship with nudity, where it's perfectly fine to see a pair of tits used in advertising. It's perfectly fine to use sexy bodies in advertising. But when it comes to just general naked bodies, there's a lot of covering up. Like, I live in Austria now, and I find it so refreshing that when I go swimming, when I'm in the women's changing rooms, there's nobody covering up. There's nobody standing there with a towel trying to get changed. No, the women just kind of, it's just how it is. In Austria and a lot of European countries, especially like Sweden, Germany, Nordic countries, nudity is a lot more kind of just normal. And again, this kind of creates that feeling of shutdown and numbness. Another example I give is like when you go to get a massage and maybe you might strip off. And even if you're getting a massage from somebody who's the same gender as you, when you have breasts, there's still this feeling of, oh, I have to cover my breasts, I have to cover my ass. So again, we kind of learn these messages that parts of our body are not okay. We've got to cover up certain parts of our body. Our breasts and our vulvas and our bums are danger zones. Again, this is going to add to that feeling of not feeling connected to yourself and that feeling of numbness and shutdown. Also, I talk about stories and conditioning a lot. And what I mean is, it's not about diving deep into our past and excavating every single relationship that we've had. But we have to understand what we learned growing up, what stories we internalized about sex, about pleasure, about our bodies, about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a sexual woman. And realizing that we probably did not have that many positive ones. And if you did, you are so lucky. But even if you had the most affirming, wonderful parents, you don't escape the society we live in. You don't escape the slut shaming. You don't escape the side eye. You don't escape, the Daily Mail ring of shame, or the slut shaming that still exists. It's 2025. Look on any bloody female influencers, TikTok or Instagram. Look at the comments. Slut shaming is still alive in 2025. So think of these as all the different ways that can contribute to you. I'm saying feeling numb, but what I really mean is all of this that contributes to your body, your nervous system, detecting or feeling like anything sexy, anything erotic, anything pleasurable is a threat. And I say this deliberately because, especially when it comes to shaming messages, whether it's from religion, purity culture, your culture of origin, whether it's from the wider world, whether it's from your ex-boyfriend who slut shamed you and said that your fanny stinks, whether it's from, I don't know, bullying in high school, all of these things, they add up. And what they do is it means that our nervous systems and our minds unconsciously associate anything to do with sex and pleasure as a threat. So, I was talking to a friend who's a mum the other day, and she was saying sometimes just even seeing the word pleasure, even seeing the word orgasms, or even body or sensuality, that gives me a jolt in my stomach. And I'm thinking, yes, because your body, your mind is unconsciously associating that with a threat. And when we are in a threat response, when we are detecting something as a threat, it's very hard to feel pleasure. Which, if you think about it, it makes sense. If we are detecting a threat, if our bodies are detecting a threat, our bodies are preparing in that moment to either run away from, fight off, or freeze in response to a threat. Like that bunny rabbit running away from the tiger. That deer running away from the tiger. That deer is not going to stop and say, hang on, wait a second. I'm just going to have an orgasm first. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to really savor how nice it is outside. The grass is really fresh. The sun is shining. I've just had some delicious carrots. I don't know. I just had something delicious. Hang on, tiger. Let me just savor the moment. No, of course not. In that moment, that bunny rabbit or that deer, just interchange there, is fleeing for their lives. And we have to remember that when we think about any form of stress or threat, our minds and our bodies interpret them in the same way, which is, am I going to die? Am I going to run away from this or fight this? There is a threat there. I've got to deal with that. And also to remember that when we are in a feeling of threat, and when we're in a state of threat, our bodies are going to tense up. It's really hard to feel pleasure when you're tense. I mean, literally the blood flow can't move. On a very physiological level, when we're feeling stressed and when we're detecting threat, we're not going to get much blood flow to our genitals, because in that moment, all the blood flow is going to our limbs to prepare to run the fuck away or fight whatever is the threat there. I talk a lot about nervous systems and bodies because we have to remember we live in these bodies, and there's no amount of mindset that's going to override what our bodies are doing. There we go. So just pausing here, how much resonates with you here? How much can you think, yeah, well, of course. In my sessions, both one-to-one, group, workshops, I'm always saying, well, of course you feel like this. It's kind of inevitable that you feel like this. It makes complete sense that you feel like this. You're not mad, you're not broken, you're not silly. If you think of everything that's happened and how your body's responding, of course, it makes sense. You're not mad, you're not broken. And sometimes that can be either enough or just enough to make you feel that you can exhale, you can breathe a bit deeper. It really breaks my heart whenever I work with women in relationships with men, and they're made to feel that they're the one with the problem, that they're the one who's broken, that they're the one who's got to do all the fixing. It makes me so sad and pisses me off at the same time. But this is the way that the medical and the therapeutic system often treats people, that we are a problem that needs to be fixed. There's something wrong that has to be fixed, rather than, what if we could take this approach that everything is working exactly the way it's supposed to be in response to a threat? So We've explored why this can happen. I'm going to scroll down so I get all the things instead. I also want to talk about the cost of what happens when you are feeling shut down and feeling numb or not feeling much. Because the first thing that comes up for me is life feels grey. A lot of the time when women come to work with me, it's from this place of, I know there is so much more available to me, so much more pleasure, so much more life force, so much more just, but I don't know where it is and I don't know how. And then when they start to do the work and start to wake up their bodies, it's almost like life becomes a multicolour, technicolor again. But also, I want you to remember that if you're having duty sex, in terms of sex to keep the relationship afloat, I guarantee that your partner is probably not enjoying it that much either. Or they're getting minimum enjoyment out of it. Like, it's just about scratching the surface. And is that something you actually want for your life, for your relationship, for your marriage? Is that how you want things to continue, where you're just about scratching the surface? Or you're just about keeping things ticking along? I don't think you do. And I think you know that there is so much more available to you. Also remember that, going back, it's very distracting. I don't know if I'll continue doing these podcasts with both video and audio, because I'm trying to follow some notes and I'm looking at myself on the screen at the same time. All of these things, but I thought I'd give this a go. I also want to speak into that this is when intimacy and pleasure becomes pressure. I led this really cool workshop for Mother Circle with Lisa Hombach like a few weeks ago. And we all talked about that often when we see the word pleasure, because the topic of the talk I gave was mother pleasure. And it's this thing that sometimes pleasure, sexuality, sensuality can become the next level of pressure. Oh, for fuck's sake, I'm already overstimulated. I'm already overwhelmed. I've got so many things to do. I've got a kid hanging off my tit. I'm covered in milk stains. I'm covered in Weetabix or whatever. And now I've got to be pleasured too. And I'm guessing you felt that as well, that you felt this pressure to perform. And sometimes if you're feeling that jolt, when you see the word pleasure or you see the word sensuality, maybe that's also because your body's associating that with more pressure. More things you've got to do, more ways you've got to perform. And that really breaks my heart as well, because I believe that pleasure is not about who can be the sexiest, who can be the most vivacious, if that's a word, who can have the most orgasms. It's about how can I connect with my body and how can my body tell me that it likes something? How can I give to myself and to my body? And I'm guessing there's a lot that your body wants, that your body needs right now. Because, again, you can spend so long trying to wake yourself up sexually by trying yet another breathing technique, trying a different vibrator, trying this, trying that. But if your body is just feeling that as pressure, more pressure to perform, it's going to keep trying to protect you. What if instead you started to befriend your body and create this intimate relationship? As I'm saying this, I'm touching my chest and my breasts here. What if you could start that dialogue with your body, with your breasts, with your vulva? So rather than, as I'm doing this, I'm for, if you're listening in the audio, I'm now touching my wrists. Like, rather than seeing this, I'm just, come on, gotta get an orgasm out. What if we could see this as, hey, let's have a conversation. How are you feeling? What do you want? What do you need? Because I bet that sex has become a thing where it is about obligation, about duty, about, another thing I've got to tick off my to-do list so my husband doesn't get pissy at me. And that doesn't feel sexy to anybody, especially not you, and even not to your husband or your partner. What if instead you could start to, I was going to say befriend your body, befriend your skin, and actually start asking your body what it wants in the first place? Because if you've gotten stuck in a cycle of performing, of faking it, I bet your body's got a lot to say. And often it can be as simple as actually checking in with how your body wants to feel, what your body wants to do, what actually feels good right now. And this is how we get out of performing. So, now going down my notes, and this is being annoying. I'm going to move this here. So, what can you do? How can you start to move out of feeling shut down and into pleasure? It's weird because the first thing that comes to my head is give your body a fucking break. Give yourself a fucking break. Sometimes the sexiest thing you can do for yourself is to give yourself a hug, to put your hand on your chest, your hand on your belly, your hand on your vulva, and just say, yeah, I know you're holding a lot right now, and I'm here for you. And I'm going to take away that stick in which I'm beating myself up with, and I'm going to put it down for a bit. You know what? What if I start to really focus on meeting my basic needs? I'm going to make sure that I'm eating properly, that I'm getting enough water, I'm getting enough sunlight, that I'm moving my body in a way that feels good for me. I'm going to follow what feels good rather than what I'm told I should want. Think of this as the foundation. Because again, you can do all of the fancy breathing exercises and tantric exercises, and they are wonderful. And yet, when this foundation isn't met, it can sometimes be really hard. It can still be difficult. And what if you could start this process of treating your body as though it were your own intimate partner? Because it is. You're stuck with this body for life, for better or for worse. I often say that me and my body are often in couples counselling because I have a body that loudly complains. Can you start to be willing to treat your body as your lover, as your partner, as someone that you love and deeply care about and is hurting and wants your love and attention? I remember leading a client through an exercise where we connected with their belly. And I don't know about you, but I've had a very on-off relationship with my belly. My belly is bigger than I want it to be. My belly, I have IBS, so my belly is the first place that stores stress. My belly is definitely bigger than I'd like it to be. And I think a lot of people, a lot of women have an on-off relationship with their bellies. And for her, it was really healing just to actually touch her belly and almost forgive her belly. And say, it's okay, I'm here. Maybe we're going to get on this time instead of me trying to constantly hide my belly or shrink it. I always recommend the book, The Sensual Self by Evian Whitney. And it's not so much a book, it's a journaling prompt book of different prompts every day to connect you to your sensuality. I led this workshop called The Sensual Body a few weeks ago. And again, that was connecting with your senses, coming home to your body, befriending your body, learning what feels good. I believe this is one of the steps or the foundational steps in starting to reignite your pleasure again. Because it's not about how many times can I wank per day? How many more vibrators can I buy? Sometimes it's as simple or foundational as starting to listen to your body as opposed to trying to override it all the time. The next step, and when I say the next step, I'm mindful that I don't want to say that it's like a 5-step formula. You do step 1, step 2, step 3. It's often a lot more cyclical and non-linear than that. So the next step or phase or whatever, and that is how can you start to infuse pleasure into everything? And by that, I mean not just sexual pleasure, but every kind of thing. And if pleasure feels icky to you, make it joy, make it yumminess, make it things that feel good to you. Start with a non-sexual first. Like tea for me, obviously, getting your nails done, having beautiful flowers, wearing fabrics that feel good to you, clearing out your house or your flat. Think about the senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. What brings you pleasure and joy, and how can you start to infuse more of it? Can you take longer with your morning coffee? Can you give yourself a hot Epsom salt bath and immerse yourself in the water and absorb the heat? And then use a gorgeous, delicious body scrub. Yum. Can you find all the ways to infuse pleasure into your life? And by that, I also mean, can you think of how much more you can add in? Think of, I don't know, the analogy of like a wobbly table where you need to add more stability. How much more nourishment, she says, posting ads, how much more nourishment, how much more support, how much more feel good can you add into your life? The next one, which is start to also learn how your body tells you it doesn't like something. How does your body tell you no? How does your body tell you it doesn't enjoy something? And can you actually listen to that? Can you actually, for example, you walk into I don't know, you're meant to be going out to a social event and you don't want to. You're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're whatever. And your body's giving you all the signals, but you kind of push through because you think you have to, or maybe you do have to. Is there a way that you could honor that no instead? Another thing to do is start to reframe how you think about sex, how you think about sexuality. I love the analogy that sexual energy is life force energy. Can you start to see that your sexual energy is your life force and your life force is your sexual energy? What's going to feed that? What's going to revive that? What feeds your spirit? What nourishes your spirit? What nourishes your sexual energy? Can you do more of that? I always use this list from Barbara Carrellas from her book, Ecstasy is Necessary. And it's called My Top 10 Turn-Ons for Life. And that is 10 things in life that turn you on, not just sexually. And that means anything that makes you feel yummy, buzzy, in the mood, in the zone, everything. Like going to gigs and live concerts, standing at the top of a mountain, being in water. Water's always a thing for me. Being in the flow, singing, dancing, whatever. Can you do more of that? Because again, if you are feeling sexually numb and shut down, I bet that you're feeling numb and shut down in a lot of areas in your life too. There's a lot of things in your life that maybe you've lost your passion. Maybe you've stopped doing things for fun because you've had too many things to do. Maybe you and your partner are also not having fun anymore. When I talk about pleasure, there can also be this judgment that it's something facetious, that it's something nice to have, especially when you have so much to do. What if pleasure was necessary? I mean, also the book Ecstasy is Necessary by Barbara Carrellas. What if pleasure was not a nice to have, especially in these really fucked up political times? I'm recording this on April 9th. God knows what's going to happen tomorrow even, because the news is changing all the time. And what if pleasure was one of those ways in which you connected to what makes you feel alive again? I know that when I'm feeling in a rut, when I'm feeling hormonal and all of the things, I know the one thing that always helps of the many things is turning on some music and shaking my ass. That always helps, always helps. It always makes me feel so much better. What if you could start to reframe that you exploring pleasure and your erotic life force was you finding something to live for again and feeling like yourself again, especially when you're a mum and your identity has completely changed, or this illness or something that's happened, or the menopause that's completely changed your identity and your worldview. And now you need to find a new identity. Or maybe go back to your old, basically you need to remake your identity and go back to who you were, or you get what I mean. Find out who you are outside of something else. There's so many things. Like, I still remember that Sexual Freedom Awards ceremony I went to years ago where there was a stripper who was performing and she was amazing. And in her bio, like in the brochure, it said that she got into stripping from coming out of an abusive relationship. And she found that doing stripping was a way for her to feel like herself again, find herself again, feel comfortable in her body again. What if that could be the thing? So anything else I need to add? It's also really important to learn the language of your body. And by that, I mean get used to different sensations, how it tells you it likes something, how it tells you it doesn't like something, experimenting with sound, experimenting with what touch feels good. This goes into it, and touch as well. If you are in a sexless relationship or a marriage where the sex is like become very perfunctory, or you just do not feel sexy, how much touch is happening in your life? And by touch, I don't just mean a quick nipple rub and a clit rub and shoving the dick right in. How much touch are you having? Nourishing touch, healing touch, loving touch. It could be massage, it could be holding hands. How are you touching yourself? How are you relating to yourself? Do you even know what kind of touch you love to give and what you love to receive? What if you're just severely undertouched? Or maybe maybe you are both highly touched out from your kids and also not getting the touch that you actually want and that you actually need. For me, I'm a very touchy person. Touch is everything to me. I'm a very sensual. You can touch me and that's it. I'm yours, like anything you want. I'm really lucky that my husband is very, very affectionate and touchy-feely, because I do not know what I would do if he was not. Maybe that need isn't being met with you. What if you are just not being touched in the way that you actually enjoy being touched and you want to be touched? Can you start to get more touch in your life? And by the way, this is one of the modules on body bliss, which is we'll be exploring self-touch, the touch that we actually like, the touch that we don't like. Because there's this, what was it? My brain is buffering. A lot of us have to learn how to touch and be touched. And that might sound really simple and silly, but actually it's not. Most people don't actually know how they like to be touched. I mean, you've probably had a massage where someone was going way too hard, or maybe you've been with someone that thought that like grabbing your nipples and twiddling them was a great thing to do. I've worked with a lot of women where they have a difficult, like a really uncomfortable relationship with their boobs, because they had partners before that thought that just grabbing them was something really nice. And for them, it was like, no, this doesn't feel good. But they've been bracing and kind of overriding and either smiling through it or just not fully admitting that this doesn't feel good to me. And I'm putting up with it when I actually don't like it. Also, rewriting the rules of what you think pleasure should look like and how pleasure should feel. In fact, what sex and intimacy should look like and should feel. Could you write down, maybe you could do a journaling practice of, if penis and vagina sex was off the menu, what would actually feel good to me? What would I actually want? What would I actually enjoy? Because you might find there's a hell of a lot there. One of my favorite things in working with clients is them realizing that they are actually highly sensory, highly sensual, that they're actually highly erotic, but they're kind of either forgotten, or they've been overriding it, or they've been telling themselves that that didn't count. I always give clients a pleasure homework exercise where I get them to pay attention to everything that feels good, and they realize, oh yeah, I'm actually highly pleasured. Things feel really good, but because they in their head, they were like, well, that's not sex, so that doesn't count. So rewrite the rules of what pleasure should feel like and what pleasure should be. And realize that you are almost certainly a highly erotic, highly sensual, highly energetic person. You've just been discounting it. Like a final thought on this is remembering that I'm not going to say men and women are different, but what I mean is the way that we are taught, the thing that we are taught counts as sex, or that counts as arousal, is getting aroused super quickly, being completely happy with a quick clit rub and going really hard and fast, which often can be a typical male sexual response. In that for a lot of men, typically the way they can get aroused can be quite quick. Whereas for a lot of women and people assigned female at birth, we often need a lot longer. And that is not a bad thing. There's a sex educator I love called Sherry Winston, and she wrote in her book, Something Anatomy of Pleasure. She used the analogy that men can be like fire and women can be like water. I do not want to make massive gender assumptions here, because I know that a lot of men can absolutely be like water as well. But for all intents and purposes, for a lot of men, it can be like fire, where it's quick. Whereas for a lot of women, when we start to work with our bodies, it can take a bit longer to get us boiling like water, but then we can roll and boil for hours. Most of us, most women, do not realize how much sexual energy and erotic energy they are sitting on until they start to do some of this work and realize that they are actually highly erotic, highly capable of pleasure. But we've been all conditioned that the only way to experience sex is one particular way. And I want to really break that myth that that's not true. Let me adjust my foot. So, these are some ideas of how to reignite your pleasure when you are feeling shut down. And maybe you've got some more ideas as well. I invite you to take one takeaway from this podcast, take one action and do it. Do it today or tomorrow, like write it in your diary. And I really want you to remember that you do not have to feel ready or healed enough to do this work. Remember that there will always be something stressful happening in your life. A lot of the time when women come to work with me, it can be from this place of, I'd love to, but life is crazy right now. And sometimes it is, don't get me wrong. But I'm guessing that you are telling yourself that you need to wait for something to happen in your life, for life to suddenly miraculously calm down. And you've been doing that for years. Maybe you've also been telling yourself that I need to be more healed. I need to be more, I need to be more wild. I need to be all this. I'm saying, what if you could do this work right now? What if there was no final destination of being completely healed? And I want to say that sometimes it's better to start now than it is to wait for the perfect time, because I guarantee there will not be a perfect time. There will never be a perfect time. You will always find something to get in the way. What if the time was now to reignite your pleasure? And think about, where could you be at the end of June this year? I'm recording this in April. Where would you love to be with your body? We're heading into the warmer months. Wouldn't it be amazing to... this is a slight humble brag. We have a roof terrace in our flat, and it's delicious to me to sunbathe on the roof terrace. I wish I could sunbathe nude, but it's a city. We have neighbors. It's not going to work that well. But there are other places I can go to nude sunbathe, and believe me, that is a peak pleasure for me. What would it feel like to feel that your whole body is feeling alive? What would it feel like to feel like a new woman, a new person, to feel all of this delicious sexual energy and erotic energy inside of you? And what if the end goal wasn't so much to want to have sex with my husband or my partner again, but that this is a delicious cherry on top, a nice add-on, a nice thing to have, something that is even better on top of how you already feel? I know that a lot of women come to work with me to do this work because their relationship is in crisis, or it's reached a point where they realize, I've got to do some inner work, and that's great. And what if instead the big reveal is you coming home to yourself and your own erotic energy? What if you have spent too long in your life people pleasing, putting your partner's needs before your own, being the good mother, being the good wife, being the good person, and you need to change now? So if you feel that's you, I think it's time. And if this feels like a full body yes, I'd love to invite you to join Body Bliss. We'll be exploring a lot of what I've talked about in this podcast. It'll be 9 weeks, you, me, and a whole group of other women and people with vulvas. It'll be every Tuesday evening European time, afternoon, morning US time. If there's enough interest, I'll run an Australian time zone one as well. What else was I going to say? There was something else I was going to say, and my brain's now buffering. It will be 9 weeks. We'll meet every Tuesday evening. There'll be very easy to action homework to start doing right away. And my hope is that it's easy to put into your daily life, because I know that you're busy. And I really hope you get the support and the community of other women and people with vulvas there, because sometimes that can be more healing than hours of therapy. So if this feels right for you, I'll put the link in the show notes, and I'm planning another free workshop on Monday next week, which will be about reigniting your pleasure when you feel shut down. I'll put all the links in the show notes, and any questions, send me an email. I want to see you there. Bye.